Hey everybody, it's Sean here bringing you another how-to video. Today we are going to be installing the MX5things Sequential taillight turn signals. Specifically, the pair that I bought is the inverse sequential option. There are 3 available options. You can go onto the MX5things website to check those out. I thought the inverse sequential option would look cool, so I am ready to give that a try. Let's first tackle what we are working on. It's a 2020 ND MX-5 Miata. This is the RF model, but this process should be the same for any 2016 to 2023 Mazda MX-5 Miata, whether it's the soft top or the RF version. So what we need today is at least a flat blade screwdriver and a Phillips screwdriver. You can see I've got replaceable bits here. A ratchet with a 10mm socket. It would be helpful to have an extension. I've got some alcohol and some garage towels here to clean a surface for the included resistors that I bought from MX5things. That'll remove any sort of hyperflash. And then it might be helpful too to have a really small flat blade screwdriver or perhaps a trim removal tool, as there are some pop rivets that we're going to need to remove. And I've got my handy dandy work light to just help out and give us some more light in the trunk. You can see here's the actual the replacement taillight LEDs for the turn signals, and then we've got the included harnesses with the 5 ohm resistors to keep this vehicle from hyperflashing. I do have LEDs installed elsewhere on the side markers and also in the front turn signals. So let's go ahead and pop the trunk open here. And I'd recommend the first step to use some painter's tape and carefully mask off as closely to the back of that taillight as you can get around the painted edges of your vehicle. If you wanted to, you could even go further back. I decided to stop there, but not a necessary step, but something that I would highly recommend just to avoid scratching your vehicle when you pull these taillight housings out. So the first thing we're going to do is on the inside, there's going to be these pop rivets. We're going to remove this hard plastic liner in the trunk. And so you want to use these pop rivets here. You want to get those out. Basically use your flat blade screwdriver and just dig under the center, pop them about halfway out, and then the entire rivet should pull out. So we're looking at this guy right here. There's one down there. There's another that's going to be here, and then there's the last one. We can get that hard plastic trunk liner removed. Okay, now that I've got the 4 pop rivets out, I can pry this hard plastic panel forward and access the trunk light wiring harness, and there's the clip. We're going to undo that connector, and then we'll be able to remove this panel from the trunk. Now that we have the hard plastic trunk liner removed, we're going to remove 5 more pop rivet clips. One there, here on the bottom, and then hiding behind where that hard plastic liner is. We're going to remove this one as well. Then we can remove this entire left-hand side carpeted piece to give access to the taillight wiring harness. Now that I've got the carpeted piece removed on the left-hand side, we're going to access this 10mm nut to free up the taillight housing. Next, I'm going to go and disconnect this taillight connector to free up the wiring harness, and I'll push through this rubber grommet hiding right there behind the yellow and green wires. That rubber grommet I'm going to push outward towards the taillight itself, and we'll pull that harness through when we remove the taillight. The last step to remove it will be to remove this Phillips head screw right here, and then we will be able to access the taillight to push it out of the car. Now that those steps have been completed, we're ready to remove the taillight housing from the chassis. We're going to use one hand to pull right here, while we use our other hand, and through that grommet hole right there, we're going to gently push straight backwards towards the rear of the car so that we can remove the taillight housing from a fixed tab that's right about in this area. We want to go straight back, otherwise we may risk snapping or breaking that tab. Also, if you have not masked off the car, make sure you're very careful not to scratch your paint when you're removing that taillight housing. Even if you have it masked off, you might still scratch it if you're too forceful. I've now successfully removed the taillight housing from the chassis, and I want to show you the clip that you have to be careful of. There's only one direction that taillight housing can disconnect from this clip, and that is straight backwards. That connects right here on the actual taillight. So again, be mindful of that when you're removing the taillight from the chassis. Now that we've got the taillight removed, I'm going to go ahead and clean everything up just to get rid of some of that dust. But this is the actual turn signal housing, bulb housing, that we're going to be accessing. This housing comes out by simply spinning it and removing the bulb. You can see it's got two stoppers. This is the closed position. That stopper is the open position. Once we rotate that and get it to this stopper here, we'll be able to remove the factory halogen taillight bulb and replace it with our MX5things Sequential taillight chipboard. Now that I've got the turn signal bulb housing removed, you can access the turn signal bulb itself. I'm going to remove this bulb by pulling straight outward from this socket. After that, I'm going to carefully place this MX5things Sequential chipboard through the same, into the same socket, and it can only go one way. And then I'm going to feed that through the opening for the turn signal bulb. And I want to be very mindful of the placement of that through the lens. Take your time with this process and make sure you get it lined up in there nice and cleanly. After doing that, if you'd like, you can take some of your favorite silicone lubricant to lube this small grommet here, just to ensure that it lasts long and has a nice seal. While you're doing that one, it wouldn't hurt to do this other one that also secures the wiring harness to the chassis. Now that I've got the MX5things Sequential LEDs in place and I've fastened the bulb socket down to the lock position, I'm now going to turn my attention back into the trunk of the car to find out where to put my 5 ohm resistors, and then we'll connect the included MX5things rear turn signal wiring harness, and we'll connect those to the factory taillight bulb harness, also the factory car harness, and then we're going to connect it to our 5 ohm resistor. So I'm going to choose this place here to place that resistor. So first thing I'm going to do is use that alcohol and clean that area very thoroughly to make sure that we can prep the surface for the adhesive. Then I'm going to place the resistor right here, and then we'll start working on the wiring. Now that I've got the resistor placed, we're ready to use the included MX5things turn signal harness. So we're going to connect this small end to the factory plug to the factory wiring harness. Next, we're going to plug in this end to the tail light after we feed it back through and mount it to the chassis. And then, of course, the small black end here will connect to the small connector there on the resistor. All three connections are unique, so you can't get this process wrong. To remount the taillight, we're simply going to feed the wiring harness through the small hole right here, and we're going to carefully mount the taillight and push it straight back so that we get this small fitting to click into place. Then we're going to reinstall the Phillips head screw, and that'll help hold it in place when we get the wiring connection put together. Now that I've got the taillight housing in place, I just wanted to point out this is a metal screw going into a plastic fitting, so be very careful. Just a little snug is perfect. We don't want to over tighten that and risk breaking something. Now that we're on the back side, we're going to reattach that 10mm nut to help hold the taillight housing in place. We're also going to pull this black grommet through the hole and get it nice and seated properly again. And we're going to reattach the taillight harness to the MX5things pigtail that we've installed. Now that all of our connections have been made and we've got the taillight housing secured in place, by the way, just be mindful not to over crank on that 10mm nut. It is going to a plastic housing that stud's connected to. But now that we've got everything connected, it would be a great time to test out the light to make sure we haven't made any mistakes. You can see I've got my turn signal on, and things appear to be looking excellent in there. Definitely a cleaner look than the factory halogen bulb. Now we'll go again and reinstall all of the pieces that we took off there on the left-hand side. We'll go over here to the right-hand side and repeat those same steps, as everything should be the same or incredibly similar to what we did on the left-hand side. And there you have it. That's how you install the MX5things turn signals, the LED sequential turn signals. I went with the inverse sequential option, but hope this video was able to help somebody. Again, to put everything back, you simply just need to follow the reverse steps of how you took it apart. Thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe for more MX5 videos. Take care, everybody.